All right, we'll go ahead and get this meeting started. We do have a quorum, and we will start Mr. Joel on our budget amendments.
The first part, are we going to go over the budget first? That includes the budget amendments? No,
I've done one over the budget, but
let me just start with
whichever route you want to go first.
Sorry for the confusion. Yeah. Budget amendments, then I'll tie it back into the budget. That's what I should have said start. Okay, for the budget amendments, the far left column is the projected column that Phyllis and I worked on, and that we think that's in pretty good shape. I went through a lot of the detail and reclassified a bunch, but it's projected. We'll get into the audit in the next several weeks and fine-tune everything we can. The original budget that you guys passed last year, that's the second column under original budget. The budget amendments, increase, decrease, that's simply our working to smooth out and recognize, okay, this was not exactly budgeted correctly or to the full amount. A year ago, it was just estimated, and naturally there's going to be some overstated expenses that you have to reduce the appropriation, or the revenue topped more than what was expected, so we just smooth it out a little bit, bringing the amended budget closely to what is projected. Some of the larger items, like you'll see Courthouse Square in the second category, that was previously projected to be in the total state grants, so we just pulled it out separately as a separate line item. One of the bigger adjustments on the second page, under general government, payroll tax, employee taxes, it used to be that the general fund had all its payroll tax, retirement, employee insurance, all in one category under general government. With the new software that's input, now each major category has its own retirement, the employee insurance, all categorized by major department. So the original budget had it all combined in the general government, and so it's just naturally been allocated. So we allocated the budget to follow the expense through the major categories. That's basically a wash from the main category to spread out. Another example, at the very bottom of that second page, city garage vehicles. A year ago, you didn't know what you were going to spend in that category, but you had a good idea. So $7,600 is projected, but you anticipated more expenses. That didn't pan out. So we just reduced the budget by $18,000 to be more closely aligned with the projected number. So throughout the entire 12 pages, that's the direction that we've taken. And then on page 4, you'll see at the very bottom, fund balance category. The original budget in second column, the original budget for beginning fund balance is $5,161,925. The projected end of year for 2024, or 2020, the beginning budget for fiscal year 24 is to be $4,034,000. So we reduced the beginning fund balance by $1.127 million. It was expected in the original budget that we might have to move $50,000 from general fund to debts to police drug, but that is not necessary. So we've reversed out that planned or budgeted transfer. Within the drug fund, we just see the same thing where we projected 50,000 coming in from the general fund. That too has been reversed out.
You still on page 4?
I am at the very bottom.
So why would we have $1 million difference there? I don't, I'm kind of confused from the original budget to the amended budget.
Oh, that's because, well, the 5 million was originally budgeted as what we thought was going to roll over from 2023. That number is still not final, but that there was probably more grant money expected to still be around, but it's been spent on paved roads and such. That's probably the biggest piece of it right there. The page 5 is on the street aid. Nothing alarming there. The home rehab on page 6. That matches, the projected matches the budget. It may be that you've got some funds that had not yet been spent by June 30. So that might roll over a little bit different than we expect. Drug fund on page 7. Vehicles of 76,000 in the projected column was not expected on a year ago when you were doing the budget. So we've increased the appropriations by 76.8 to officially authorize those expenditures prior to year end. You can see that the total expenses in the far right amended budget is expected to bring the ending fund balance down to 4,700.
Joel, I'd like to go back to page 4.
Okay.
Our projected budget for 23-24, bottom, 3,243,330, and the original budget was almost 1.6 million more than that, correct? So
The fund balance at the end, the 3.2, is after all the revenue and expenditures have come in for fiscal year 24.
All right, so the fourth column, the 596,890, is the decrease in the budget?
That is,
The heading of that column says decrease.
yeah. The increase has yes, they're both actually decreases because we're decreasing the net decrease in the increase column. Because that increase column has both increases in revenue, increases in debt or expenditures. So the net there is 2,021,60 about.
Where's that figure?
At the very bottom. If you take the negative increase column, add it to the positive decrease column, that's about 21 or 2.146.
Okay.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
So the second column, 5,195,000, is
That is the projected a year ago.
projected a year ago, and then you take away 1.57 million and take away 596,000, and that's where the bottom of column 5 comes
Right.
from.
Now, just be aware that this amended budget has plenty left in it because we don't know exactly what's going to clear by the end of June. A lot of these projected numbers were based on early June. So we had to project last 2 months because we had to get the budget before you with 10 days to put it before the public. So there are estimates in the projected column. There's several that we believe to be showing more expenses. Oh, for example, the amended budget probably is about a total of $250,000, has a buffer in case expenditures come in. Like, we didn't know exactly what category.
Which item is that again?
Overall in total. So if you look at the amended budget, total expenditures of 6.6, that's not going to be 6.6. It's projected to be 6.4. But even those projections are a little bit high, just as a buffer. So where you've got the amended budget, 6.6, that includes fluff in case one of these categories is overspent. Let's say there's a contract out there that I didn't know about for the airport. Ideally, there's enough remaining budget built in that will accommodate that without having to have a finding, hey, you didn't budget enough for that one expense line item. So to try to get it precisely down to a narrow number would just open us up to exceeding the budget, not having enough appropriations to accommodate those expenditures that have not yet cleared the bank, and that have not yet been presented in the next 60 days after the year end to be payables. Like, you're going to have fuel bills that will not come in until July that represent expenditures from May and June. So we're just allowing a budget to be in there just to accommodate those unknown expenditures.
Okay, so you're at the bottom of column 5 on the general fund budget, proposed, now Livingston general fund budget, 5.443 million is the proposed 24-25 budget.
Are you on page 4?
No, I'm on this other column. I think you referred, I thought you were referring to that, because you mentioned the 6.042 million figure of your total revenues.
Oh, total revenues.
I think he may be.
I've got 2 folders of paper, or 2
Yeah.
sheets.
You've got some budget amendments and you got the budget too. I think he's looking at the regular budget, Joel.
Okay.
and not the-
Well, that's a good time to bring this forward. So the original budget that you passed back in June, early June, the projected 2022-23 I've made a few adjustments there because we have additional information, but there's not very many adjustments there. The original budget was a carryover from that was passed a year ago this time. The amended budget reflects all my increases, decreases that are in the following pages on this one. It's strictly a budget. Like, everything on this budget amendment, proposed budget amendment, ties back into the 4th column on the budget.
So we have
On
$3
the-
million in fund balance right now.
You're projected to have about, let's see what it is. $3.2 is projected. It's going to be somewhere in that ballpark at the end of this year.
What's actually?
We don't know, because there's still another week left, and then we have to process what happens in July, August, relative to June 30. Like, you're going to get a lot of revenue in July and August that relates to June 30. For example, the trustee money that comes in July represents May's collections. You're just now getting it in July. August represents July's collections that you get in August. the July's collections from the trustee.
How much money do we have in the account right now?
Okay, that's totally different. That's totally different. That doesn't relate to fund balance at all. Fund balance is simply what you've earned and minus what you spent. Fund balance is you take what you own, which is cash and assets and receivables, and minus liabilities, all the debt, all the accounts payable. So what you own minus what you owe is fund balance. It's not at all cash. There probably is not $3 million in the bank. You are strong in the bank, but I can't tell you exactly how much that is right now.
So what we're seeing here is a proposed budget for 24-25 that is 120,000 approximately less than the projected 23-24 budget. On the first page of
The projection of $6 million on page 1, total revenue, and the proposed $5,443,000 is correct. So the biggest difference there is you're not set up budget-wise to receive as many grants as you did in fiscal year 22-23. I'm sorry, in the budget. Okay, projected 23-24 is $5,564,000. And proposed is $5,443,000.
right, that's what I'm.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so we still feel like we need to raise property taxes by 5%?
You've got expenses. You look at revenue, yes, and then you look at expenses. Your projected expenses for this year on page 4, $6,413,000. Your proposed expenses, $5,189,000. That does not count the debt that you owe because you've got to pay expenses, principal on debt.
You said you're on page 4?
I'm on page 4. So you are in the projected, you're going to get in the projected line on page 4 where it says excess deficiency of revenue over expenditures. You're into this fund balance about to be $850,000. So you're already spending money from the beginning fund balance. That really needs to be recouped so that you can address the proposed expenses.
Doc, I think here in just a minute I can answer you just a little bit. I can elaborate that a little bit more when we go to the next.
What would the proposed, what would be the revenue approximately of a 5% increase in property tax?
I think it was only adding about 76,000.
Are you done with the amendments? If he's wanting to go into the budget, then that's my point.
I'm here for any questions
Okay,
afterwards. So.
yeah. So, to switch gears, first, before we actually get into the budget, as any ordinance, the public hearing, if anybody has any questions about the budget that was proposed from the general public, now's a time to ask if anybody from the public wants to do that, because we did have a public hearing.
Now's the time to ask.
Yeah.
I understood Joel to say something about we're still calculating numerical activity in the previous fiscal year.
That's right.
Is that possible, that the books are still not closed from
That's possible every year.
22 to 23?
Well, I don't know about 22, 23.
It's unusual that that one would still be open.
Right.
But because the audit is not yet done, I have to use a projected number. That audit's not done just because of complications in the new software. That really caused some problems reconciling bank accounts. Phyllis reconciled all the bank accounts within the bank, but not to the software. new software has had some issues as far as posting transactions twice, and it's a lot of labor to get in there and figure it out and get it straightened out. So we're working on that. The budget has been delayed, or the audit's been heavily worked. The draft report has been done, but the timing, their work, by the time the audit work papers or the draft report was done, there's a delay.
Okay, so we are on the accrual accounting method here, right?
Oh, yes,
Right.
modified accrual.
And does each fund, second question, and does each fund have a reserve? Or do we have a separate fund someplace, like a tornado rips off a piece of our roof for City Hall? Totally unexpected. What reserve do we have?
We have insurance for that, sir.
And we still need $10,000 of our own or something. What reserves, if any, do we have? Are they in each fund, or do we have one?
So-
I really don't like this word, slush funds.
Yeah, so no, we don't have a slush fund.
Okay.
So in the scenario that you're using, any of the funds, whether it be general water or gas, since this is City Hall, that's the example that you were using. Perhaps if we wanted to take $3,000 out of the general fund, $3,000 out of the gas, and then $1,000 out of the water, then we could do that simply because it is this building and this is the headquarters.
It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. So, no, we don't have a slush fund. We don't, so, the way the way the city operates is through the general fund, through enterprise funds such as water, gas, sewer. Each one of those departments stand on their own 2 feet. Let me say this. The general fund, if any, is the one that has, where the revenue comes in for property tax, state shared sales tax, and any other revenue other than one of the, what I'm calling the enterprise funds, which would be water and gas. So also understand that police, fire, parks, sanitation, those are the departments that come out of the general fund that are not self-supporting. So you take, we had a pie chart last year, Joel, I can't remember. A high percentage of the general fund is for public safety, period. Dr. Clough brought up the increase if we needed to have the increase. The increase, the penny brings in $9,590. It will bring in a total of $86,310. 60,000 of that is going to police and fire, maybe more. Would a new fireman coming in, 40,000, boom. Okay? All right. So to stay to where we don't get in a situation as recommended by MTAS, Municipal Technical Advisory Service, that you need to be looking at a property tax increase a nickel a year. And if not, you fall in behind the 8 ball. And I think that there's some chatter in the community about maybe another government body that might be at a very higher rate. And I don't know their business, don't want to know it, but the facts of the matter is none of us want property tax increase. None of us, period. but as the late great Bill Winningham would say, it's a necessary evil. If you want to continue your police, you want to continue your fire, you want to continue your parks, you have to pay these employees. And if anybody's been out in the workforce much, the supply chain has almost doubled. Labor is not doubled, but there's certainly been an increase. We did a pay scale, and it showed us that our employees were severely underpaid. And again, that's about 35 employees coming out of public safety. Okay? That is why the increase is. So, if you don't want the 9-cent property increase that is going to bring in $86,310, then we have got to have another conversation about where we're cutting in general fund. You're going to cut the firemen, you're going to cut sanitation, you're going to cut police, just tell me where. That's where we are. And I'm not being disrespectful, sir, not at all. I'm just simply telling the facts. When I set this budget up, I started at 12 cents. But as I seen, we didn't need to be that high. And then so I went down to a nickel. That didn't work either. So 9 cents is where we ended up. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think we're doing okay.
Okay, thank you. The raises in the with the pay scale for police and fire, parks, airport, street department. These are raises that is coming out of the general fund. And again, the general fund, we have to stand on our own 2 feet too. Now, obviously, the goal is to bring in more sales tax revenue. That's why we hired the retail coach to help us with that a little bit. Now, we've not got any brick and mortar out of that deal, but we are certainly haven't lost any revenue in the sales tax revenue. Joel, do you have something else? Sorry, I cut you off. My apology.
You're talking about the, what you call the reserve per fund. So you can sort of look at the bottom line on like the 4th page, and so I want to make sure that you understood that there's not a slush fund that's not on the books. We've accounted for all the accounts. Each fund has a reserve for cash because it has a balance of checking that stays ahead of what the actual needs are, just for, like I said, the unknown. So each fund has, like you look in debt service fund, that's an easy fund because there's not a whole lot of investments or anything beyond cash. So debt service fund on page 9 shows at the end of this year, end of projected, $477,000. So that's mostly going to be cash because there's not any assets on it like vehicles or buildings or anything that would kind of contort that number. So 477 is about what you would have in the cash bank account. That includes any kind of reserve for unexpected needs to, there really is nothing unexpected in debt service, but that's just to account for any reserve funds. So, I think that's all I have at the moment. Are there any other questions about any other funds or anything?
Okay, so we will need to vote on the budget amendments first that Joel just went over, and then we'll go over the budget.
I move we pass those.
Motion made by Alderman John Clough to pass the budget amendments.
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Bruce Elder. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Ms. Phillips.
Alderman Linder,
Yes.
Alderman Clough,
Yes.
Alderman Dale,
Yes.
Alderman Elder,
Yes.
motion passed.
Motion pass. The next item is approving the 24-25 budget. I just went over the highlights again. We went through it in the first meeting. If you have any questions on that, I'll be glad to answer them. Again, the penny brings in $9,590. Is 9-cent property tax increase. $86,310 is what will bring in. And I actually also I've got a breakdown for the ones that didn't get an opportunity, perhaps, to get it the last time. That simply talks about your assessed value. We will go to $1.80 and it should. It will go from $1.71 to $1.80, and you can see the property value there at the at 50,000. You can see it going up 12,000. You jump up there to 200,000. Roughly $65. 300,000. Not even not really even 100. So that I just like to show that so folks could know what their property value and what their taxes are going to go up. Okay. Again, in the police department, these do include raises. 2 squad cars, fire department raises for them according to the pay scales. 1 uncertified fireman. Parks have new scoreboard, 1 new scoreboard, and off-road utility equipment. No changes for the budget at the airport. Street department pay increase according to the pay scale. A big expense, if you noticed in your budget, was the long arm bush hog, $181,000, and that's to clear the right of ways for the city. Water and sewer funds, of course, employees raises across the board. There's $115,000 in there with equipment. They either purchase a ditch witch or a rubber tire backhoe. $115,000 in there. Inspection of the water tanks. And how this comes about is I sit down with all the supervisors and have them to write down a wish list of things that they'd like to have. And sometimes it turns in, well, it's more than that, Mayor. We really need one. So that's kind of how that goes. So, and then I crunch the numbers, put it in there. If the revenues are there, then we put it in the budget.
Mayor, there's been some talk about a public service building. I mean, is that something that's way down the road?
Well, I do not have a public service building in this budget, no.
Yeah.
But I think that we're going to have to have a conversation. I've talked to, I've talked to this board several times about it. I've talked to Mayor-elect Lori about it.
Where is the source of funds coming from?
So, I mean, there's several ways I think you could do it. Rural development's probably going to be the biggest hurdle because it's probably going to be an affordable deal, and they're going to probably set it up on about a 30 or 40-year deal. Good or bad, I don't like loans that long, but It works, and then when you pay it off, you build another one. That's kind of the way it is, but that's the route that I would go, probably, is rural development. Yeah, that's all right. And some of those funds can be used out of water and gas. Some. So it don't have to hit general fund too hard. Is there any questions over the 24-25 budget? I've hit the highlights. We went over it all last time.
Just a reminder that the proposed column was not changed at all.
Okay. In the proposed column, Joel says we never changed it at all, so it's nothing has changed. So I'll entertain a motion for approval of the 24-25 budget, please.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Alderman Rex Dale. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman John Clough. Any discussion?
I'd like to chat just a second before we vote. I want to say this about the mayor and to the alderman. I've done a lot of research on this thing the last couple of weeks, and I say research, just putting numbers together. And went back 13 years on the tax increases. The mayor and the board has, out of 13 years, has increased 8 years out of the 13. 5 of the years, we didn't, or the city didn't. And, you know, that's impressive. It really is. And then looked into the pay, and I don't think, if any, maybe once or twice, they didn't get a raise, and I couldn't tell you when. Either a 2%, he's proposing a 4% this time. You know, the employees of this town ought to pat the mayor on the back. He's done a good job. So I just want to say that before we move on for a vote.
Got a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion? Call the roll, Ms. Phillips.
Alderman Clough,
Yes.
Alderman Dale,
Yes.
Alderman Elder,
Yes.
Alderman Linder,
I'm going to abstain from this, and it's just due to the taxes. And guys, I'm going to pay taxes until probably the good Lord takes me out of this world, but I'm just thinking about people on fixed income. So that's my motion on myself. I want to sustain.
Abstain. All right. Continue on.
that's it, motion passed.
All right, motion passed with 3 voting for the motion and 1 abstention. So we will meet again on July the 8th due to the 4th of July week coming coming soon next week. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion made by Alderman Rex Sedell, second by Alderman Bruce Elder. Any discussion? All for the motion, let it know by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. We're adjourned.